In any event, we're going to start. And just, my name is Ted Flynn, for those of you who don't know me. For those of you who know me, my name is still Ted Flynn. And I'm one of the clam diggers. I grew up on City Island, and those of us who grew up there are clam diggers versus muzzle shuckers who moved later in life. And I have enough notes here to probably keep you entertained till Thursday, but we probably shouldn't use them. In any event, the story starts back in 1947. And the Flynns, my family, we moved from the lower end of City Island, like the Jeffersons, we moved up to the upper end, Miniford Avenue end of City Island. And after settling in, I went around the corner to make friends with this new crowd of young guys, and after the appropriate amount of welcome aboard beatings, I became one of the core members of a group that named Tom Sheridan, Kevin Clancy, Rossi Brown, Bill Peterson, and Jerry Knapp. Later on in life, as we expanded our horizons, Ronnie Hurl, the Peterson brothers, and, Tommy McKenna became a part of the inner core. And in truth, we had a lot of fun as kids. All of it was clean cut, most of it legal, for the most part. But Kevin showed early leadership. And in fact, I can remember very distinctly, we all had sticks for weapons, and any old Army equipment we could find any place. And Kevin had us close order drilling, marching up and down his side yard on Miniford Avenue. He also was great at giving out nicknames. So some of us will recognize Stinky, Leadhead, Buckethead, Five Crowd, and I am not going to tell you which one of us was which. Just know that he had names for everyone. Bill Peterson is here, another clam digger, and maybe you could fill us in on a couple of the items. We really had to concentrate, just picking up maybe some of the best of our youth. Bill.
Thanks, Ted. I'm going to tell a story about, involves Kevin, involves the group of us, Ted, Tom Sheridan, Tom McKenna, Ronnie Peterson, and we had growing up, we had a very close friend, a young lady by the name of Jane Flanagan. Jane was in class with Ted and Tom Sheridan and Tom McKenna. They were a year behind Kevin and myself in the class of 1955 grammar school. Anyway, after high school, Jane went on to become a nun. She went into Good Counsel College in White Plains, and we all missed her. She was a one-of-a-kind person. Anyway, there came a point in time about 4 years later on, we were 6 of us sitting in the local bar, Keen's, now called Artie's on City Island, and reminiscing about Jane. And somewhere around midnight, we decided that Jane really did not want to be in the convent. And there was no question about it, so the 6 of us piled into my car. It was a 1947 Lincoln, and we have more stories about the Lincoln, but we drove up to White Plains, parked the car right across the street from Good Counsel College. 6 of us got out of the car and started walking right up the main circular driveway of the campus without a clue of what we were going to do. And at that point, all the lights went on the campus. So we all scattered. Tom Sheridan and I went to the back of the campus, climbed over a 18-foot chain link fence, got back to the car maybe about a half an hour later on, no one's around. Go to the car to open the door, and the police were there, waiting for us. And they took Tommy and I into the precinct in White Plains. They started telling us all the charges that were going to be leveled against us, for trespassing, etc. At any rate, they kept us going for about half an hour or so. Then they left the room, and there was another room right next to us. And Tommy and I looked in the room next to us, and there was Kevin and Tom McKenna with these big grins on their faces. They're the ones who got picked up first, and they're the ones who told them where the car was. Okay? So at that point, it was probably getting close to a shift change. So they told us on no uncertain terms, never come back to White Plains. We're barred. And they gave us a police escort out of White Plains. One car in front of us, one car behind us. And as we're crossing the bridge leaving White Plains, there is Ted and Ronnie Peterson. And the police said, well, let's go back and start this whole thing all over again. Thank God they decided no, they wanted to go home themselves. So we got away from White Plains that day and lived to talk another story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay.
There were four motivators for us as kids. There's boats, water, Bill's 1947 Lincoln, which was our wheels for most of the escapades, and the Manor Bar and Grill, where we spent a lot of time dreaming up these things to do. Our collective youth, much as it was, we had a lot of fun together. And we did, let it be known, Kevin was a great boater. Kevin was not a good driver. Right? The truth will out. I mean, and you know it from his adult life. He was having more accidents than Carter has little liver pills. But what you don't know is that Kevin never passed a driver's test. Now, the statute of limitations, I'm sure, has long disappeared. So I'm going to share with you the truth. And the truth is, Tom Sheridan over there took the driver's test for Kevin. As Tom, because back in those days you didn't have photo IDs and stuff like that, as Tom is getting in the car with the state trooper, Peterson leans in the window and says, "Hey, good luck, Tommy." I mean, Kevin. In any event, Kevin had his license for a long time without ever passing the driver's test. A footnote to history, and Tom will fill us in. But in 1959, Kevin was very fast. He was a speed merchant. And in 1959, at the Milrose Games in New York, and all of us were runners in high school, Kevin set the city record for the 110-yard dash, if I recall correctly, and has never been broken, as long as we attest to it, that it's never been broken. And Tom and I and Bill will all swear to it. Ronnie's here too. He'll swear to it. Anyway, we want to fill you in. Well, the top hat story can wait. That was, Gerald, you had some comments about the top hat.
The top hat?
The sailboat in the Parkchester Oval?
Yeah, I'll talk about that later.
Okay, we'll save that. Finally, at one point in time, Kevin and another guy that was a peripheral member of the group, Bob Gillings, were coming home from a night at the Rathskeller over in the Bronx and dug up all of the speed signs between the Pelham Bay Bridge and City Island. Now, you wonder, what are you gonna do with them at midnight? You've dug up all these signs. So what they did do was they carried them up 3 flights of stairs to our apartment door and parked them there. The next morning, my mother gets up, opens the door, sees all the signs, and without another word, said, "Kevin Clancy did this." And she was right. And she swore me to secrecy that I wouldn't rat her out and let Kevin know that she knew and we knew. And went to the extent of getting the old man to lower them out the back porch window down onto the local dock so that he wouldn't know. And Kevin, when we went to church, Kevin says, "Hey, anything going on?" And I said, No. He said, "You didn't find anything in your front door?" I said, "No." And we kept the secret for the longest time. But it was old Mom who nailed it. Anyway, I could go on. I'd just like to say that Kevin had a very warm heart. He was very personable. He was very generous with his time. And he was a friend, and he will always be a friend. And in keeping with the spirit of public speaking, there are 3 simple rules. Be sincere, and I think I have been. Be brief, maybe not so much. And be seated.
I was going to make 1 or 2 more comments here. I'm a muscle sucker. I was not born on City Island, but I moved there when I was 4 years old and moved next to Kevin. So Kevin and I have been friends since 1945. He was my best friend growing up. He's been a friend all these years. He was my best man at our wedding, Marie and I. And he's my oldest son's godfather, and a very close friend, and someone we're going to miss, but we're going to celebrate his life for a long, long time to come. Okay, thank you.
Down by Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village low. He will not see me stopping here to watch these woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds a sweep of easy wind and downy flake. These woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep. And miles to go before I sleep.
I've always got to do that. So this event has been amazing already, what's been said and recited and sung, and also the sentiment that's shown by all of you being here. So I come up here with a feeling of humility. All I can do is share some thoughts about my dad that seem important to me, and hope that they do justice to him and to this gathering. I want to start with my dad's career. As the priest mentioned this morning, this was just part of the story, but the reality is it was a big part of which he was extremely proud. BA from City University of New York, PhD from NYU, professor at Wharton and later at BU, co-founder and CEO of Copernicus Marketing Consulting, author of best-selling books. You can see them in various languages in the corner over there. In 2008, inducted into the Marketing Research Hall of Fame. Even more, I want to say something about the character of those achievements. My dad was really into that hit TV show Mad Men, or Mad Men, I'm not sure where the emphasis goes there. And like that crowd, he was a spiffy dresser. But otherwise, his office life was very different. As he said, more science than art. After 2008, he got another honor, this one from the American Marketing Association, which said, in recognition of his contributions to marketing research in the areas of multidimensional scaling, classification, and multivariate statistics, especially as they pertain to substantive marketing problems in positioning, structure, consumer choice, segmentation, and competitive strategy. That was the first paragraph. So my dad's work was obviously rigorous, requiring hard thought and effort, and to see what that work went toward, we can look at his books. I got a couple up here, one by my dad and Peter Krieg, who's here, and then the one I'm going to highlight is next is the one he wrote with his longtime colleague Robert Schulman in 1991. This book starts by telling companies that they need to understand basically the pulse of America. Then it tackles that topic, correctly predicting, this is back in 1991, predicting that American values were moving toward greater environmental concerns, which the book calls a trend and not a fad, and more desire among the public for quality and trustworthiness. The book then urges companies, and this refrain was repeated by Peter and my dad in the later book, urges companies not to rely on gimmicks and promotions, and instead, and here I quote again, to address real customer needs with real solutions. So put all that together, and we're reminded that my dad's work was an impressive discipline or craft, a craft which he, with longtime close colleagues, helped to develop, and which was turned toward a good purpose, making business work better for companies and for people. So no wonder he was so proud of his professional career. Over time, but especially in recent weeks, and especially over the past weekend, I've thought hard about how he achieved what he did. Part of the answer is just that he thought very deeply about issues, big and small. Kathy recently mentioned his concept of 10 chips, like poker chips or game chips, which brought back memories for me. Let's say he's driving home from a day on the boat and there's a big debate in the back seat of the car. McDonald's, Burger King, or Wendy's for dinner. He'd quiet the clamor and introduce a decision-making tool. Imagine you have 10 chips. I want you to assign a certain number to McDonald's, a certain number to Burger King, and a certain number to Wendy's. Thus began a tutorial to 10-year-olds about measuring the relative desirability of several options. That's the kind of thinking that he brought to the family car on Saturday night. So imagine what he brought to the conference room on Monday morning. He also had an undeniable personal magnetism. This is something that also he brought with him everywhere, but I first saw it on the home front. Fall would come, and he'd have the kids out there raking the yard. And by the kids, I mean his kids and a healthy contingent of neighborhood kids. Why were they raking our yard? They'd been drawn into the orbit of the neighbor they called Mr. Clancy, or Mr. C, or Dr. Clancy, who was interesting and funny and radiated a sense that his busy house was the place to be. Later, I saw the same effect at the office, with the telltale sign being that people worked hard all week, and then on the weekend, there they were on the boat, taking turns at the helm. This was the kind of boss people of all ages enjoyed working for. But all that makes it seem easy, and it wasn't. There was another force at work for which I wanted to give him credit here, effort. He cherished City Island and the clam diggers, but in the late 50s, early 60s, I don't think there was any well-trodden path from there to Madison Avenue. So imagine what it took to cross that bridge and make it happen in the big city. Very soon he was a parent for the first of 2 such chapters. He loved both of them. But most parents I know have trouble finding time to read a book. So imagine what it took to write books. I remember a Friday night in middle school. He'd been on a business trip all week, and now he was driving us to Waterville Valley for some skiing. Window rolled down, he was sticking his head out into the cold to keep himself awake. Fast forward to my wedding in 2005. He stood up to give a speech, and right away he surprised everyone. Me and Helen, maybe Kathy, definitely Neville, who was 2, and seeing his dad give a speech for the first time, and especially Helen's extended family. The surprise was that he began the speech in Korean, and kept going for an arduous but impressive paragraph or 2. Korean is a beautiful language, but not a tongue that anyone thought my dad possessed. It turned out he found a tutor and worked with the tutor for a few weeks. So not just applying a complex craft, but expanding it, not just reading books, but writing them. Not coming home from a business trip and getting some well-earned rest, but driving the kids to New Hampshire with his head out the window like a railroad engineer. Not just giving a wedding speech, but doing it with high style and great sincerity. This was how my dad operated. One of his sayings was, if you can touch it, you can catch it. And he lived by that idea of extra effort in backyard touch football and everywhere. I've also been pondering one other question, which is what motivated my dad, what inspired him to charge so hard. One answer is that's just how he was. One of my earliest distinct memories is from the mid-'70s. Sue and I are watching a faculty touch football game. And I can't remember much about it, but I remember a strong impression, which is that from speed and attitude, he was definitely intent upon winning that game. Relatedly, he was just one of those people with an innate desire for excellence, a job well done, a well-turned phrase, a well-trimmed sail. Speaking of sails, as with most people, there were things in life that he wanted to enjoy, and chief among those was his boat. F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote about his most famous character seeing a sizable boat for the first time. To the young Gats resting on his oars and looking up at the railed deck, the yacht represented all the beauty and glamour in the world. I think my dad felt that way every time he looked at a beautiful boat, and he and Kathy's alacrity was certainly one of those. But there's something else really important which gets to the heart of what I wanted to convey. I know that he pushed forward the way he did because he wanted to put himself in a position to benefit others. His 4 children were the main focus, but this constant project swept outward to other family members, to friends of friends, and beyond. In another memory, I'm downstairs at my Radio Shack computer, and the stairs above me are rattling. The rattle is the footfalls of a classmate heading up to my dad's home office to get some advice on college applications. And then a few days later, the stairs are rattling again. It's a recent college graduate getting help on the beginning of their career. This sort of thing was afoot all the time in many ways. It was a two-way street. With younger people, he'd take you to see a famous site, but you'd be expected to read up on its history. He'd take you sailing on Saturday, but Sunday was a day of rest for the boat. It was at the dock, and you were cleaning it. With college-bound people, it was a similar dynamic. He might set up a work-study program to help you pay for college, but you'd better be ready to crunch some serious data at the office. This was an excellent kind of generosity. It was harder for you, but it was also harder for him. And it wasn't just about propelling someone forward. The intent was to develop a more knowledgeable, more capable person. For decades, the Bedford House and later the Gloucester House vibrated with this kind of energy. He didn't need to do it this way, but he chose to. If we imagine that my dad had 10 chips, he put a big stack of them onto the progress and welfare of the people around him. It's tempting to skip past his illness, but I don't think I should because of its significance to his life and the impact and duration. But it's a hard topic for many reasons, so I'll just tell one story involving my dad's sense of humor. This goes back to last winter when he was in a rehab facility. He was on his back much of the day with periodic PT sessions that were valiant, but very difficult. A week ago, my daughter Evie of the Evie and Clover poetry reading team happened on a text exchange from that phase. The exchange begins with a message from her to me, nicely asking how Papa Doc is doing. Papa Doc was the affectionate nickname of his granddaughters for my dad, coined by the verbally and otherwise talented Kettlehon girls years ago. So how is Papa Doc doing? I received this in my dad's room where I was sitting with Kathy and super nurse Jemila. And from the bed, my dad dictated a response. Tell Evie I'm playing touch football in the dining room. That's a small story which stands for much more about his sense of humor and his spirit in what was certainly the hardest year of his life. Finally, the obituary mentioned that my dad's shelves were filled with great books. The obituary was a big team effort. That sentence I wrote, and it's true. But on further reflection, his love of art had much more to do with taking things off the shelves. He loved to sing and recite, and he was even happier when other people sang and recited. That's part of why this celebration has been so great already, and in a moment I'm going to make way for Karen and her guitar. But I want to read one sentence from one of his favorite books, How Green Was My Valley, the novel about a hardscrabble Welsh mining town. He talked about this book all the time when we were kids. And it happens to end with the passing of a father. The narrator refers to his father as gone, and then checks himself, and the sentence is, "Yet not gone, for you are still a living truth inside my mind." In my mind is a man who lived for more than 80 years, who carried a great deal on his shoulders, business and fatherhood, and who through his own energy and spirit, and also great good fortune, did, saw, and gave an incredible amount. I'm honored to stand here to express my love, admiration, and gratitude. Thank you.
So my brother spoke about my dad's love for music. Can y'all hear me? Okay. My dad's love for music, and anyone who knows our family knows that there was this ongoing theme where my dad would ask someone to sing a song. And most of the time, people acquiesced. Dylan, Brendan, they would sing a song. But whenever he asked me, I would not sing a song. I don't know what it was. But a few years ago, I started taking guitar lessons, adult learning, and my dad was basically a captive audience. And he did love it, and he would often close his eyes, which he did when the cousins sang as well. He loved music so much. He would close his eyes, and then he would open them and say, "That's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard." And this could be anyone singing. He just loved the song. But there was a time a few months ago where I was playing guitar for him and he closed his eyes, and I thought he had fallen asleep. And I stopped playing and started putting the guitar away, and he barked out, because we also know my dad's a barker. "Play it again, and sing louder this time." So I'm gonna play this song. This is a song from our childhood. It was on a CD that my dad played all the time. I think it was called Summer and Sand. And I associate it with summer days, waking up to the sounds of this CD playing, and my dad either yelling up the stairs, "Get up, we're going to the boat," or "Get up, we're going out to weed the yard," or rake the yard, or whatever. But it didn't matter because we knew it was going to be a good day ahead. So here's a song. It's called A Summer Song. I'm definitely going to mess up, but you know what? My dad would still like it. So here we go. My hands are shaking. Trees swaying in the summer breeze. Hold on. Trees swaying in the summer breeze, showing off their silver leaves as we walked by. Soft kisses on a summer's day, dreaming all our cares away in the starry sky. Sweet, sleepy warmth of summer nights, gazing at the distant lights in the starry sky. And as, wait, someone help me with the words. I'm blanking. Anyone know? Oh no. say that all good things must end someday. Autumn leaves must fall, but don't you know that it hurts me so to say goodbye to you? Wish you didn't have to go. No, 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 no. And when the rain beats against my window pane, I'll dream of summer days again and dream of you. They say that all good things must end someday. Autumn leaves must fall, but don't you know that it hurts me so to say goodbye to you? My gosh, wish you didn't have to go. No, 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 no. And when the rain beats against my window pane, I'll dream of summer days again and dream of you and dream of you. Come up and use the guitar if they are willing during the open remarks.
This is sort of the remembrance part, and before we get started, I'd like to thank all of you on behalf of the Clancys for coming here. Most of you are Clancys, I think. They breed. They're pretty heavy on the island. Anyway, thank you all for being here on behalf of Karen and Neville and the kids. And thank also the hotel staff for coming up with almost enough chairs. And if you folks had given me the $5 a person, you would have a chair. Given that, I think there's a lot of people that would like to remember or an incident in Kevin's life. If you feel comfortable coming up here, come up here. If you're from City Island, you're probably loudmouthed enough that you don't need a microphone. So with that, it's remembrance time. Gerald, why don't you kick it off?
Like many of you have noticed, I'm Kevin's younger brother, and I was the better-looking one. I'm wondering whether to read my little speech or to pick up Ted's, which is on the floor. When I heard we were going to have a chance to talk a little about this, I didn't know there would be other people from City Island. Kev's one of those lucky guys that there's a number of his friends here. There's about 10 of his friends that he grew up with as a kid. And the whole point of my talk was to talk about Kev as a kid. So I'm just going to be reading to you, even though Ted Flynn told you everything I know. So you know of Kevin's accomplishments. but I suspect only a few of you knew him as a kid. I'm his little but better-looking brother. Most of Kevin's personality was visible at an early age. His imagination, creativity, generosity, humor, drive, chutzpah were all there from childhood. His antics were never boring. He was interested in everything: stamps, books, sports, toy soldiers, model trains and boats. All of his family and his lifelong friends have many good laughs with Kevin's take on the world. My brother Tom noted that Kevin never seemed troubled by indecision. For me, he was my babysitter. He's about 6 years older than I am. He was my babysitter. He was a torturer, a protector, role model, cheerleader, coach, bankroller, and a big source of fun and exciting adventures. When we would go to the store just to pick up family groceries at night, Kevin would have us hiding behind the cars and under the hedges because the guards at the prison were looking for us. So we were playing Salley 17, which was a film at that time, and we're hiding as a car, lie down quick, as the cars go by or a stranger walks past us. We had neighbor apple fights where all the kids on the block would get into these giant apple fights that we would throw apples at. And most of us would be picking just the apples up from under the tree, not Kevin. To assure that he would win, Kevin would always have a stash of rotten apples. He'd have a basket of rotten apples, and we would cream the neighborhood kids with these rotten apples. And if that didn't do the job, he'd take out the garden hose and just squirt the ball. One time, he transformed our basement, our cellar, into a submarine. In this submarine, there was a periscope. There was a driving instrument station that we had boat wheels and everything, all kinds of controls that we had from other boats that we owned at the time. And all the kids who were in the boat, we were all wearing German medals, swords, a handy thing to have in a sub. And we're all marching around because he developed a story for us that we were all imagining and believing at the time. The highlight of this submarine was upstairs in one of our bedrooms. He cut the floor at the closet, and then he made a rope ladder so we could jump down into the basement on these rope ladders, and that was a way to get out to do our exploring. So kids are walking all around my house in German outfits. You might wonder why I had German outfits, but my uncle marched with General Patton and would constantly send home different things that they had collected. So, Kev was an entrepreneur pretty much his whole life. He was always busy, always trading stuff. He was a hustler, and he always had some kind of money-making scheme, or like David mentioned, having all the kids of the block painting the fence. That would be a Tom Sawyer-like experience that Kevin had all the kids in our block doing the same kind of thing, doing his job, whatever was assigned. Unlike myself, we went to a Catholic elementary school, and we had to sell things all the time. Candy, magazines, chance books, raffles, fundraisers. This was something that I absolutely hated. Usually on the last day of the sale, I would rob my mother's pocketbook and pay for it with that. Kevin would love every day selling chance books at the train station or somewhere else. Everything that you did with Kevin, you had to sort of pay for it, but you got a good experience with it. We had, at that time, scooters that were made out of soda boxes, and they were on skates. Kevin would make them and then sell them to people. Okay, that was fun. That was Kevin's job. He also made go-karts, which were made out of baby carriage wheels. And with that, when you bought one of his go-karts, he would push you. So he came along as the guy pushing. You had no motor. There was a night, my father came home every night at the same time, around 5 o'clock. And he comes walking by our yard, and there's about 7 kids in the yard, all driving on these go-karts. And then he realized, my father realized, that these carts all had motors on them, and they were all plugged into our outlets in through the window of the house. So there's 5 carts on electric power, and then he realized the motors came from all his tools, like the saw at band table. Kevin, we had a garden, and Kevin grew corn, and then he saved and dried the silk from the corn, and then you could smoke it. He thought it was a good idea that kids could smoke, and he made the cigarettes with corn silk. So again, my parents came home, and there's a bunch of 10-year-olds who were all smoking in the living room. He sold kerosene-soaked cattails. You put a cattail into kerosene, and that becomes a great torch. So on 4th of July, he had a sale with that. Kevin's lemonade stand was a new improved style that I'm sure none of you have heard of this kind of thing. You buy the lemonade for 5 cents, but then you could go into one of 3 pup tents, army pup tents, that were smelly, hot, damp, but in there you could rent comics. And there, as a little kid, the idea you could read Superman with your drink inside the tent, and we had more people come for the comics than for the lemonade. He had running races, football games, marching, like Ted said, marching the soldiers around. He always had events going. With the running races, which were around the block, he even had prizes for the winners, awards and everything. There was a big award ceremony. So you can imagine Kevin's always thinking. He's also thinking how he's going to make a profit on it. There's just so many things that, as a kid, which was so much fun of us being with Kevin. One of my favorite events that Kevin had was he had a freak show. And that time, Barnum and Bailey Circus had freak shows. And we had one in our yard. And the kids would come and pay whatever, 25 cents. And then he would whisper the code of Omerta on there that you cannot speak to anybody. You just have to walk silent. And then he would pat you on the back as you're going in to see the circus. And all around the yard, there are kids, including myself, with signs on our back that said something like, "Skeleton Man," the human skeleton, the fat guy, the man with 4 foreheads. One of my cousins was Cleopatra, and he gave her a fishnet to wear on her. So she had this fishnet, she's walking around not knowing why, but it also said she was Cleopatra. Who were we to know? We thought she was. Like most of the kids on City Island, boats and water took up our summers. When my father was in the war, my mother and Kevin and my oldest brother Bill lived on a houseboat. So boating, canoeing, sailing, all that stuff just becomes in your life. None of us can live very far from the water. My dad, he was a ship's carpenter, he was a boatwright, and in the winters he liked to have projects. He would build different boats for the family. And Kevin was often involved in that. We had like a 28-foot sailboat with a cabin. And then Kevin got into making his own hydroplanes. You'd send away for the plans from like Sports Illustrated or Popular Mechanics, and Kevin built hydros probably around 3 or 4 different summers. And that became a passion for him forever. Those of you who have been to his house, there's probably about 50 vintage Mercs in different rooms, in the closet downstairs. Bill Peterson was talking. Bill was a member of a marina on City Island, Vidal's Marina, and they had a locker room there. And on one day, Kevin said to me, "Can you draw designs for a locker room?" And in Kevin's house, I think still today, his garage is made to look like his childhood locker room, with each cabinet filled with vintage tools of that time, a sterno can, flashlights, drop lines, and an outboard motor in it. Banshee, you saw the picture of it, was his first hydro. I'm guessing that Kevin must have kept my parents awake at night. He was always up to something, and Ted hinted at that too. In fact, I'll try not to repeat any of Ted's stories. But every now and then, my father would read the daily paper, the New York News, and unfortunately, Kevin would be in it for something. Now, we would be very happy when he won a running award or got some type of honor. But also there'd be times when the police found a boat that had been borrowed. In this case, it was borrowed from Ted Flynn. He didn't know it at the time. And launched in the Metropolitan Oval, which is a big fountain in Parkchester. And of course, Kevin was in the papers for that. There were other times where he borrowed the machine gun from the American Legion and was written up for that too. So like Ted, they were always caught. They weren't great evil guys, but my father would read about it the next day and go nuts trying to deal with Kevin. My kids, it was another funny time, I thought. Because Kevin was always actively involving us in things, we would try to trick him too. Now, I know here today there's a professor from BU and his co-author on a couple of books that at one time at the height of Kevin's career, he was going downtown to work our house had 7 people in it, and he had to rush out because the bathroom was filled, and he got himself dressed up and headed downtown, and he shows up at the Pan Am building in New York City, where he was the vice president at that time, I think, of K&E. And little did he know, he had magic marker glasses, a handlebar mustache, Elvis Presley sideburns, all done with magic markers. And at that time, it really was permanent ink. There was no way. He went into the office, everybody at the office is laughing at him and wondering why did he do this. And he doesn't even know what it was. So we would try to get back at Kevin. He was always the first person we pushed off the boat. And if the water was cold, or if it was night or muddy, that would be even better. My kids would come down here on vacation. We lived in Alaska, and we'd come here for vacation, and they would love to go out with him. He would give them the time and talk with them about everything, and always surprise them. But Kevin, as you know, could start a conversation and would start a conversation with anyone. But we'd be on this nice boat, and Kevin would be talking in the loud hail of the speaker, asking people, "Hey, Buckethead, you got any gum?" And people would be wondering, what's he talking about? Do you have any gum? And sometimes people offered us gum. On another day, he had the kids shooting water balloons into Walter Cronkite's front yard. Walter Cronkite lived in Martha's Vineyard, and he had a lawn party going. And the next thing, they're being pounded with water balloons because Kevin had this big giant slingshot that we were firing out into the party. And we always loved at Christmas time when Kevin's gift would arrive for us. It was always something ridiculous, unique, expensive, and would just make everybody in the family laugh. Kevin was very generous with his time and his resources. Our family home, when we were kids, Kevin bought, and I can remember all of these distinctly, he bought our first washing machine, our first television, stereo, refrigerator. We had an icebox before. And this was during a time that he didn't even have a job. We don't know how he did it. The probability is he was robbing me. But Kevin bought all this stuff for the house. And later on, when my father was sick and couldn't move around as well as he wished, Kevin bought the family a big boat. That was Kevin. I have as many friends as Ted mentioned who've had, or as David mentioned, who have gotten jobs. And they laugh about when they were kids, they were dragging around greasy sticks in shipyards. That's what most of us did for work. We were in dirty jobs. And then the next thing, you're in a boardroom on 42nd Street with Kevin as your boss. I can remember Kevin going downtown. He'd be in a Brooks Brothers suit, straw boater, you know, those straw flat hats, and he's going from the Bronx to Manhattan on a Honda 50, which was a little tiny scooter. He was often knocked off the bike, but he sure looked cool going downtown. Who does that? I mean, he was one of a kind. Kevin was a burning star. He was my brother. We're going to miss him. We're going to miss him.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jemila. I was Kevin's caregiver, his friend, but he would usually call me his nurse. In the past 7.5 years, we had our highs and our lows. Kevin and I shared many special moments together that I'm going to treasure and laugh at for quite a long time. Like if I asked him to do something that he did not want to do, he would usually say, "Get out of here, go at your home, stop harping over me." He was a hard nut to crack, but we understood each other, and I loved every moment with him, and was very special to my family and I, and we all loved him dearly. Our bond was special, and he always told me how much he loved me and appreciated how well I cared for him. Imagine I would get scolded all the time to go and study. I loved how much he wanted me to be at my full potential as a nurse in this country. And I made him proud in January. We enjoyed each other's company and had our own little sing-alongs daily. As I end, thanks to Kathy, Neville, Susan and family, David and Karen for all their love and for letting me know how much they appreciated me and the care I gave Kevin. Tom and Gerald and family, thanks for all your love as well. To Kevin's 3 very close friends, Ted, Tom and Bill, I admire how much you love Kevin. Thanks for always showing up for him. Molly and First Light Home Care, thanks for matching me with the Clancys because we needed each other. And may our Kevin rest in peace. Love you dearly, Baba.
My wife told me not to do this. And she said, there isn't a soul here that knows you. And all of this is true. But I do have a couple of stories that really date back to the time when Kevin was a professor at Penn. And I was trying to woo him away to teach at Boston University, where I was temporarily that year the department chair. I got him. The problem was I didn't know what to do with him. He was, he was constantly funny. He was smart as can be. And he knew more about what you figured he didn't know anything about than anyone else I know. It started with our agreeing very informally, let's do something together, Ron. That's how it started. So we started to do something together. The problem was it involved one of the largest companies in the United States at the time. But we tried. And we succeeded. I couldn't understand how just as you magnetized here to pull this crowd, Kevin, how it was that you also pulled the crowd for us. I remember getting on an airliner with my briefcase, the standard uniform of college consultant. And we took off early. And we flew a long time. I know that it had to be Chicago or California. And on the way, I asked Kevin a simple question. Kevin, what are we going to do? They're expecting some output, some productivity from this. Well, we did it. I don't know how, but between Boston and Chicago, he put together a presentation that was accepted as meaningful by a major U.S. corporation. I kid you not. And what he put together was, he said, well, Ron, we'll start off with this. Everyone likes this. He followed up with, yeah, that'll go. And so he constructed our little time at the helm, and it was just a sensation. Then I knew enough, as I do now, to retire. What the heck is there that needs to be said that hasn't already been said? And so we retired. And we were thought of to the point where I clearly remember getting a letter engaging us for the next round. Hopefully it's tonight. Thank you.
So I am the wife of Ronald Curhan, who weaned Kevin away from Wharton to come to BU. And I have to tell you, that was one of the best things Ronald ever did. How did he do it? Well, ultimately, after a lot of negotiations, because he was very well settled there, he said, okay, if you will promise me that my family and I can go to Brussels for a semester, where I'll teach marketing at the Boston University School of Management program there, then I will come to BU. And so that's exactly how it happened. I want to be very brief, but to say that I reflect that to Kevin, his family, his children were absolutely everything. And I adored his children as well. And just one little vignette. One day he said, because he was always coming up with these ideas, let's take our children, we had two, he had three at the time, to a sandcastle contest. So, believe it or not, we piled into our two cars, we met at the beach, and and the children dug and created, and if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I am, they won a prize in the contest. But what I really want to impart to you, you've already heard about his outrageous sense of humor that we still are smiling about. I want to tell you a gift that he gave to me that I am so grateful for, 1 in a million. So one day, Susan was a senior in high school, and she had a friend who was dying to go to Penn, and she was rejected from Penn. Well, Susan asked, I think Susan asked, but anyway, her friend came over and asked Kevin, is there anything you can do to help me? And he said, sure. And he picked up the phone and he called the head of admissions for the Penn undergraduate program. And guess what? He got them to reverse a denial into an acceptance in that one phone call. I said, Kevin, how in the world did you do it? What did you say? And so he went through with me the points that he made. And I said, okay, I'm going to try to imitate you. This is the gift he gave me. From then on, right up till today, I have been helping children and grandchildren of friends of ours get into colleges, particularly when it's almost impossible. And I guess my crowning moment in that venture was, and that's the final thing I'm going to say, is that I knew someone who wanted to get into a PhD program at Brandeis, but she was rejected. She came to me. What could I do to help her? I said, okay, Kevin Clancy gave me all of the points. I'm going to go for it. So I contacted the dean of the school where she wanted to go, and I basically convinced him to take her. And I said, that is something that Kevin would have really appreciated, but for me, it's a gift that just keeps on giving. Thank you so much.
We can do this without tripping. Hi, I'm Peter Krieg. I had the good fortune of working with Kevin for over 40 years. And I loved every minute, every minute. And I took it upon myself the other day to post his obituary on LinkedIn. And I suggest you look at it and see counting up now, 70 people who have weighed in with comments about Kevin. From far and wide, young and old. He's got my job, helped me do this. Amazing outpouring. I've never seen anything like it. And I can only think of it as George Bailey at the end of It's a Wonderful Life, when all the people come in and give them $1. You know, just like that. When you read it, it's like watching It's a Wonderful Life. On a lighter note, exactly 30 years ago today, November 13th, 1993, Kevin and Robert and I went to Notre Dame to watch a football game. The game of the century. Notre Dame against Florida State. And it was a great game. Night game, crazy atmosphere. They won, Irish did, thank God, in the final second. And the last thing I saw was Kevin going over the wall, onto the field, running around with 60,000 kids. Gone. Robert and I go, oh my God, look at it. He was out of sight. He loved it. And then we're like, the rest of the day was like, where's Kevin? We couldn't find Kevin. About an hour later, we're going to the bar on campus, and there's Kevin, holding forth with Florida State kids, Notre Dame kids, just in his element. It was crazy. So, where's Kevin actually leads me to the next comment, which is, he loved to travel, but he was challenged by travel. I didn't realize he had no driver's license, although I certainly witnessed his skills. And we had an office in Westport, which he wouldn't ever leave Boston. So we always had, for 40 some odd years, an office in Westport where I was. And he would drive. And there were so many times, Betty, whatever, where's Kevin? Well, he's not here. He's on the Mass Pike. He's doing 360s in the snow. He fell off the back of the thing in the parking lot. I mean, it was like, why are we doing this? You know, we want him to live, not die on the road. I heard he was a little better with the boat, although I also heard some episodes about fire, a boom hitting somebody in the head. So driving that was a challenge. And then flying to clients, which we did a lot of, was always exciting, very exciting with Kevin. Did he go to the right airport? Kevin, we're at Reagan. This is where we go to see Mobile. It's Reagan. He's at Dulles. Happened a number of times. We had an office in Brazil. And one morning, we're waiting for him to arrive. Where's Kevin? Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires. And this is before phones, whatever. I mean, just finding this out took a day. He didn't get his visa updated, so he wouldn't let him out of the airport. He's in quarantine in Buenos Aires. That took 2 days to get him freed up. And he didn't travel light through all this. I don't know if you remember, and we'd heard he liked clothes, right? He loved clothes. So every time we went somewhere, he had to have the Hartman over the bag, shoulder. He had another thing. In that bag, I had to carry it a number of times because we were never going to make our flight. And I said, Kevin, what do you got in here? He always traveled like 3 pairs of shoes. And we were only going away for 2 days. Well, who does this? Had the heavy loading coat with the buttons, you know, and the horns on it. Couldn't have been heavier. Kevin, you know, really, do you have to, can we get there? So one time, we were making a connection, and I said, there's a group of people, elderly, running for wheelchairs. And I said, I grabbed the wheelchair from this poor woman to put his bags on it, put him on it, so we could race to the gate. I'll never forget it. And to this day, like, oh, I hope that woman, you know, she's probably still talking about me. So, maybe I'll leave it at that. But I never mind carrying his stuff. Not at all. It was a joy to work with him. And now we know where's Kevin. And so, rest in peace, George Bailey. Thank you.
Well, I'll be brief and sincere, and I'll sit down shortly. But I just want to say what a joy it was to know Kevin. I met Kevin when I joined the faculty at Boston University in the School of Management. And got to know Kevin early on. We were exactly 6 months apart in age and just hit it off fabulously. What a brilliant, funny, warm, wonderful man. I miss him a lot. And but I never quite knew what he was going to say. We went down one time to the Westport office, day trip. Kevin drove, and nobody warned me about his driving. And worse yet, it was one of those smaller, I think, red sports cars, and I'm in the suicide seat. And we got down okay. And while we were there, it was the kind of car, too, that was so small that if a semi hit us, it just needed the windshield wipers to get us out of the way. But we got down, and during the meetings, several people came and went, mostly in the employ of Clancy Schulman. And one was a gal, I forget her name, but Wendy, a very nice gal. Kevin and I were probably 55-ish at the time. Wendy was probably 30 at the time or so, and very pleasant gal. And she left the meeting, and the meeting went on. And Kevin and I got back in the car to drive back, and I fastened my seatbelt and wondered. And we got rolling, and Kevin said, Bob, what'd you think of that gal Wendy? I said, well, she seemed bright enough, nice gal. And hold on, Bob. Picks up the phone, puts on the speakerphone, calls up, gets Wendy on the phone. Wendy, it's Kevin. Great meeting, yada, yada, yada. By the way, I'm here with Bob Dickie. He's fallen madly in love with you. Sweet Jesus. And he can't wait for you to come up to Boston and see him. Kevin. Well, you know that's the Kevin we all know and love. And my heart will be with Kevin till the day I join Kevin. And my thanks to the Clancy family. Thanksgiving at their home. David, Susan in absentia, Karen, lovely grandchildren. My heart's with you, and thank you, and you were so blessed.
I just want to say thank you to everybody in different facets of my life and our life. I am just overwhelmed with the outpouring of love and affection. And so, with that being said, there's a lot of things to talk about Kevin. We've had so many fun conversations. We had a great gathering at our house last night. 4 guitars, bagpipes, and an accordion all broke out at our house. And it was just one of those times that Kevin would have loved to have presided over and partook in. So anyway, thank you all for being here. We are serving lunch, and you're welcome to stay. And again, thank you so much. It means everything to all of us. It's been hard, but it's been very lovely.
Mother, relative to Ted's opening comments, I would just like to say that we've learned a lot of new things about Kevin today, and yeah, I just wanted to, I was hoping to get up here before Kathy got up, just to put what Kevin would be today in 2023 parlance is that he would be an influencer, a thought leader, a game changer. He was an incredible brother for us, and Gerald and I were both taught how to drive by Kevin. We learned today that we learned from an unlicensed driver, which surprised both of us and explains all the tickets we've gotten over the years. And we just are, we're going to miss Kevin immensely. He was so critical to our development and all the things that went on in our family. So we are grateful to be here with all of you and celebrate his life, which was exemplary. Thank you.